and we are recording.
Mouthful of drink. Perfect timing there, mate.
Well, always impeccable timing, right?
You do your very best.
How about that, Smithy? We are at the end of another financial year.
Yeah, I don't know if volunteers think like that, though. It's the funny thing, right? Is there such a thing as a financial year in volunteerism? Maybe in clubs and alike, when you've got to respond to the regulatory authorities and lodge your financials or lodge your outcomes. But for the most part, I think a volunteer on the street doesn't really think like that. They just think about getting a job done, right?
Yeah, and look, and realistically, especially in the sports environment, as we know, they don't really coincide with fiscal calendar years. It's like it's winter, we play footy.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's correct.
Anyway,
100%. But we are setting a cycle because a few things. Number one is we're trying to run a storyline to a cycle, which we've just completed with the 25 hours of volunteering over the newsletter series that we've just completed. Clearly, we've just come through Volunteer Week, so we've had a couple of big milestones at the back end, and we're here to celebrate them today and close out these storylines and make sure that we get to our audience and try to look to engage with them in something that might be of interest to them as we move forward into the next fiscal period for us. And we're looking to volunteers to give us some feedback. What is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? How can we be better?
Yeah, well, as you know, Smithy, and just on that, I sit on the panel for the Gold Coast City Council Volunteering Steering Committee, and we had an interesting conversation at our last meeting about, the desperation of some of the volunteer organisations for assistance, but then the lack of the responsibility to implement any of that assistance. Do you know what I mean? And I think the 25 hours was a really good example of that. There is so many different touch points that can help an organisation grow.
Yeah.
But the volunteer audience has to lean into them. I mean, we could provide another 250 hours if we wanted to. I mean, so
true.
I can't urge our volunteer audience any more than what you can advocate as well, is to just let us know. I mean, we're here. We're in the what do you call it? In the trenches with you. We're here to try and help improve your organisations in whatever capacity that is to improve, and we're happy to do the work. We're happy to do the legwork. We're happy to publish those things in our newsletter. So, look, I think and not big note in us. I think the 25 hours was a fantastic series, and we covered lots of content.
Yeah, flagging the ground on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'd really like to know from the audience of if we haven't covered your concerns or the things that you want to help grow with, then just let us know. We're happy to dig into them. So,
yeah, and look, we live lives. I'd like to pretend that we could do this full time, mate. It's not a reality at the moment. This is the truth, right? So we're at what we call the front end, and we all know the adoption curve of the front end. I think we're certainly pre-chasm, and so we're in the early adopter stage, which means that we want to have conversations that can shift the way we think. And on the flip of that, the content we're trying to put out is what we see from our experience in volunteering on where people could get better, do things better. But there's lots of things that are happening that are really, really pertinent at the moment. And one of those is where, I'm happy, as I've put up in the newsletter, and yet to have enough people show interest. Maybe it's the wrong question. That's always the way, right? Is it the right question? But I can tell you right now, the organisations I'm working with, we are looking at massive shift changes in the way in which we do and operate. Why? Because volunteering is a scarcity. It's becoming a scarcity to find people that want to put themselves into something deep enough that they can make a significant difference. And so when you look at the R's, lots of things we looked about was identifying the right skill sets for the right role. That's a really important piece. So what can you do if you can't find the right skill set for the right role? As one example, technology could be a replacement for that. It's coming. And you need to be aware, because it will make a difference in the way in which you operate. And not everyone can do it, mate. I get it. But for those that have got a little bit more, sophistication around the committees, around the delivery of what they're doing, there is no question in my mind that technology will be an enabler for you moving forward, and a significant enabler.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I just share a little story because I know one of the R's that we covered was rallying support, and it's
Yep.
really hard for a lot of organisations. They go, oh, we need more volunteers, or we need more sponsors, or we need more donation. So to rally whatever support it was, but you got to have the conversation, like, so I was just at the supermarket this morning, getting some stuff for dinner tonight. And I'm standing there, and there's a guy there, and with no offence, he looked like a bit of a footy guy, um,
Yep.
and he had a
Which
whole
footy
stack.
though? Let's be clear. I need to understand
Oh,
what code.
yeah, it would be NRL, and
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
obviously up here there's a bit of buoyancy because Queensland won game 2 of the State of Origin,
Yep.
so they're all rallying about. But anyway, he had this big stack of packets and packets of chicken thigh fillets, and thought goes through
Yes.
my head, going, oh, maybe you're having a hungy or whatever. And I said to him, yeah, let's not go that way. But I said, bit of a cookout tonight, buddy. And he said, no, no, we're doing a fundraising exercise for the Southport Tigers, our kids' footy team. I said, oh, that's awesome. I said, what age group? He said, under 12s. And I said, that's fantastic, man. I said, you're a volunteer? I said, because I don't believe that the club would be paying
Yeah.
me to do a cookout. And he went, yeah, absolutely. And I said, well, what would happen for these kids in the fundraising if you weren't doing it? If the club wasn't doing it. So I said to him, like I normally do, I get my phone out and I go, hey, listen, you got your phone there? Just take a photo of my business card. And he said, oh, what's it all about? I told him about the Firefly. Our mission is to elevate volunteers, to use the process in our app to record the time, to be able to leverage that time against sponsors and local businesses for social impact investing, and hopefully contribute to some of that fundraising so you don't have to have as big a cookout next time. And anyway, so I get in the car, and 2 minutes later, I get a notification that there's a new member join. So, like, it's
Southport
if you
Tigers, right? Southport Tigers. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you look at it, like as we have this fantastic network. Just another story yesterday, I had another volunteer from Burleigh United Church and Burleigh State High School. He said, oh, I volunteer for the Burleigh South Soccer Club.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, how do I go about introducing them? I said, well, you can do it the upfront way, you can do it the sneaky way. Up to you, Ralph. Now, obviously, he's a Christian pastor, so he probably went the upfront way. But anyway, I said to him, it's this simple. You can either add them as an organisation and fill out the details, and they'll get a notification, or you just send them an invite.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, within one conversation, a new organisation has joined the platform. So now we have the Burleigh Soccer Club that's joined. He said there's a fantastic volunteer environment. So, when we look about rally and support, we just have to have one conversation to find out how easy it is to actually build momentum and start rallying support.
And that links into volunteering, but it links into your community as well, mate. Like that's part of the whole one of our core pillars. Elevate volunteers, improve fundraising, right? So improve fundraising. The classic example there is the time and energy people put into the cook-ups, the barbecues, and those things. If out of those 8 people at the Bunnings sausage sizzle, 2 of them just went and spoke to some local businesses and said, "Would you come on the platform?"
Yeah.
Your support of us is by us supporting you, coming in and eating in store or coming and having a coffee. That's passive fundraising. That's infinite. That never stops, right? So it's just how you think. Yeah, it's how you think. You got to reboot your thinking, which was one of the other ones, which was reboot technology. But I think it's reboot thinking as well, right? Reboot your thinking. Yeah. You don't have to do it the same way. There's no rules.
Yeah, look, and I think one of the strong messages that we need to give to our audience as well is that by introducing another organisation in our model doesn't detract from your opportunity. It's actually the opposite. The more organisations and the more volunteers we have platform, the more opportunity we have to be able to create corporate funding that then diversifies across all our volunteer organisations, not just one. I understand sometimes in the boarding codes that I don't really want to introduce other businesses because they're my sponsors and I don't want them getting interested in you. So, but with our model,
but we don't complicate it. It's not we don't cross, we don't steal, we don't poach. We're not interested. We're about network effects and adding as many high quality people to our network that see the value of community and volunteering. It's pretty simple. I'm actually going to read through the 25. We weren't going to, but I'm just going to punch them out. So, we've got this mandate that there's 3 or 4 R's, and we know what they are because we've all been reading the information that comes down from Australian Volunteering Australia and our local volunteering communities. There's a lot more. It goes a lot deeper to be a really good volunteering org. So I'm just going to punch them. So recognise and reward your people, number one. Pretty obvious. Retain with meaning. So that means retain relationships, retain your people, and talk to them like you care. Yep. Another really, really simple one, but not always done. Reignite passion. You've got to remember that sitting in a seat doing the same thing, it doesn't matter whether you're in a job, doesn't matter whether you're in your personal life, doesn't matter whether you're volunteering. You've got to continue to try and find something to reinvigorate, reignite reignite passion. Recruit for succession. Talk to me about that one, Darryl. Recruit for succession. What's the meaning behind that?
We find a lot of organisations that are fantastic organisations. They have a fantastic volunteering community. And with no offence, we all get to a point at some stage in our life where it's either a little difficult or I've done enough. You really have to start thinking about who is the next generation that's going to actually continue our mission, to continue the cause, to continue the club. So really need to look about what is, first of all, the succession. And, for all the presidents out there and for all the CEOs and founders of your organisation, you didn't start that for it not to continue.
It's a legacy piece, right? It's 100% legacy piece. And you can get caught up in your own legacy. It's not your legacy. It's a legacy of the entity by which you're virtuously trying to support and grow, right? That's what it's about. Yeah. I can tell a little story about that. I'm president of a fairly large association. Love it. Love being on the strategic side. I've got a clear role that I bring to the table. I know what it is. I had a little contest for the presidency last year because I think people were trying to shape the way in which the association delivers its services and functions. Fortunately, I got up. But what was great is I went straight to that person and said, hey, I'm not going to be here forever. I've actually identified you've got talent and skills. How about you jump in as VP, take a year under the seat with me, bring your stuff to the table, and in a year's time, it's your role. It's your role, man, because I've done the 5 years. I'm at my tenure. I think I've delivered what I want. I've clearly got legacy I want to leave, but the legacy that I want to leave is that we've got a really strong association that can support the members and the people that are beholden to us into the long tail. So that's a really good one. Recruit for succession. Reskill for the future. We are in massive shift change right here, right now. It's probably the largest shift change almost in the history of mankind for what we can absorb as humans. I'm not saying we haven't had massive shifts in our society, but for what we can absorb as humans. Yep. So we need to be thinking about what are we giving to our people to educate and train and make them think. In our newsletters, we talked about a lot of technologies. Just go back and have a look at a few of them. There's so many little snippets of technology that would add value, huge amounts. Okay, reflect and refresh. Reflect and refresh.
Yeah, it's so good. We think about, there's this ideology which I don't really buy into, which is that we learn from our failures. And I go, we learn as much, if not more, from our successes because it's our successes we want to repeat. So reflect on what you've done this year. Add some technology that's going to help you bring it into the new year. Think about the successes you want to replicate. And then refresh yourself by celebrating those successes rather than thinking, we got so many things wrong last year. You know what I mean? If your organisation
the classic, mate, for me is the fundraising piece. Like, reflect. What worked? Well, we had a really good engagement on our our annual night, and part of that is we put up auctions. Sign for auctions, highest bid, lowest bid, random winner, all that, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. There's 100 variables of that. Have you actually allowed for that to go out to the community that doesn't attend on the night? Have you digitized that process?
Yeah.
I know. I'd say a lot haven't, right? So these are the opportunities where something works. Extend out the value, make it better, and if you do it, you're going to get better results. This was an interesting one because I can't remember exactly the content of this one, so I might have to lean on you. Relay to revamp. I think it's storytelling a little bit,
it was about because if you look at it in sequential order, the reflect and refresh, which was these are our successes. Okay, so
Yeah,
now as a storyteller, how do I relay those successes
yeah,
that will revamp the opportunity for sponsor engagement or
yeah,
donations or event attendance? So it was a second part to reflect and refresh, and
yes,
you're not really going to get a revamp if I go. So we had 8 fundraising events this year. 7 of them were shit, and one worked really well. Do you know what I mean? Um,
mm,
so that relay is how do we tell that story that then actually revamps the enthusiasm in our organisation and the support. So that
yeah.
was a kind of a follow on from reflect and refresh, Smithy.
Yeah, and I think the rebuild trust was then the next segue, which was that you've got relationships that you've cultivated for years gone past. Are you actually going out to talk to them again? There's a sales storyline that goes something like this. It's 6 times harder to get a new customer or a new sponsor than it is to bring on and reform with an existing one. So from my perspective, one of those things is, how do you rebuild trust? And trust is doing what you say. And too often sponsorships are a little bit of paper delivery, not delivery.
Yeah.
Yep,
Mhm.
it's telling what we're going to do, not actually doing. So there's
Yeah.
this really big piece around, how do you measure that? How do you performance manage to that? And if you
Mhm.
look at the large entertainment sponsorship, they manage this to the absolute last
Yeah,
task. Why?
absolutely.
Because they need to get that guy back, or those people back, or that lady back, or whomever it is that's sponsoring them. They need them back for the next year. So there's this concept of long tail sponsorship built on trust. So go and rebuild the trust.
Yep.
We have recharge events. Recharge events.
Hmm.
It's kind of pretty obvious. I don't
Yeah.
know if it needs to be explained, but
No.
I mean, from my perspective, your perspective,
Yeah. No. It's simply that. It's that we there's an old saying, and we're bringing up all the old sayings at the end of the financial year. It's ridiculous. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But it will get stale if you just want to run the same trivia night every week. Do you know what I mean? So, you
Japanese
know,
Japanese culture is they take that it ain't broke, don't fix it to another level, which is, if it ain't changed, it ain't improving. You know what
yeah,
I mean? So take the concept of don't try to fix it, just improve it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that was it. That was the idea about if you've got an event that's worked, instead of creating a new event, how do we recharge that one because it already is proven to be successful?
Spot on, like going back to existing sponsors. And then it's the next one, which is be creative in your fundraising. Be
Mm-hmm.
creative. This is shift change stuff. You've got existing stuff that works.
Mm-hmm.
Extend on that and look at unique things. I remember years ago, mate, we came up with one which was off the back of a tennis delivery program we talked to, and that was the one around, how could we make a really cool, simple game that could append to something else that
Mm-hmm.
could be different than what you do. And we in the end, we created a game called Tolf. And every
Yeah.
time I wheel that game out at my local club that I service, or clubs, even my business, every time I wheel that game out, it's so refreshing to see people going, wow, this is unique. The gold coin donation, the $5 swipe free shots, these are
Yeah.
easy to put into any environment, in a park, at your venue. It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
So,
hard to do
excuse
something
me.
unique. It's not hard to do something unique. Yeah,
Side issue. If you'd like to know more about TOLF, then just tap us a line and we'll share
please.
it with you because it's a load of fun. We've done it a number of occasions now. It's
Can be
100%
done
inclusive.
anywhere. Yeah,
It's 100% easy. There
no one
realistically
can't
is
play.
no
Yeah,
rules, no guidelines, no anything.
yeah.
So if you want to have a good fun day and raise some money, yeah, just reach out and we'll tell you all about TOLF. Anyway.
Yeah. And so I'm going to say that's a link into campaigns. I would suggest campaigns are slightly different to events in that you are designing an outcome for an end result, right? So that might be communications planning, digital delivery. That might be using website improvements to create keyword search stickiness. It might be reaching out on a call out. There's various ways which you can identify an outcome, but
Yeah.
wrap it in a campaign. Make it stick so that the people you're communicating to understand the end goal, and the key things are required to get there. Make it a campaign, reimagine them, and talk them, describe them out to detail, and be specific. Yep. So have an idea in place. this reach out to strategically one I think sits at the top end of town a bit more. Daryl, talk that one perhaps.
Yeah, look, we do get to a position where we can spend a lot of time reaching out to whether that's sponsors, whether that's fundraisers, whether that's grant applications, whether that's more volunteer audience, and we can get to a point where we spend a lot of exhaustive time and it's not strategic, and with no offense, there is practically no not-for-profit that may be a fantastic environment, got 10 volunteers doing a great thing that's going to attract a lot of sponsored media attention. So would I be trying to canvas to get Channel 7 to be a sponsor of mine when they go, what's the publicity, what's the reach, what's the distribution model? You know what I mean? Not that your story's not important, or that the work you do is not important, but we really have to think about what we can offer. Smithy, in relation to sponsorship, my position is always value sponsor first. Not what can the sponsor do for my club, what can we do for the sponsor, and how do we actually make sure that we deliver on anything that we are obligated. So again, don't think from a position of, wow, this could be a sponsor and they could drop 20 grand on the table and it overburdens you relative to delivery and expectation.
I put 20 signs on the fence instead of 5, you mean?
Yeah,
I try and appeal to the pure nepotism of which the 20 grand, 15 grand goes into the sign writer down the road. Like, geez, man, like seriously. But you linked me to a really big piece of what we've been trying to work on. And for anyone that's out there, real estate agents or any service delivery agents or anyone that's a volunteer that's got a small business that currently sponsors in a big way their community, congrats and salutes to you. But here's the spin on what you were talking about, I think is critical, mate, Sam. And Sam was reach out to the sponsor, but don't reach out just cap in hand saying, here's the typical brief. Think strategically. And in Sam, our strategic thought is that whilst 20 grand might be great at the club, imagine if you can power that into the community. Yeah. Imagine what the sponsor feels about their relationship with you. That it's not a one-way street. It's about growth of their brand, securing their opportunities to acquire customers, because that's what the sponsor should be there for. If it's philanthropic, just sign an agreement that says, you philanthropically give me 20 grand, let's say, and it ends at that. Be candid, right? What's the point of doing all the bullshit, right? But if it's something you want to sustain year on year, build something strategic that adds value. So I'm all over that one, mate. I think that's one of the biggest pillars of fundraising you can do.
And if I can just jump on, one of your colloquialisms, that the rising tide rises all boats.
Funny that one.
I mean, if you think strategically of how can our organisation benefit this business, rather than how can this business benefit our organisation, you don't get Joe the butcher who's been giving you $200 worth of sausages every weekend for 3 seasons, and you go, it'd be really nice if one of you footy boys walked in here and bought something.
Wouldn't that be nice? You build it, right? You build it. You make it part of the design. You don't allow for the bleed of not delivering on promise. You make it part of the design. And that's why I'm super proud of where we've got to in a part-time capacity, because I know that we're signing on volunteers. I know that we're signing on organisations. I get a message every day in our digital platform that tells me how many hours we've got in platform. We're really close to 30,000 hours. Is that where our aspiration is? No, 1 million hours is aspiration. But what is absolutely aspirational for me is every day that's going up, every single day. And that means people are engaging. We're seeing people using our platform to swap their hours for rewards. This is not about us paying volunteers. This is about us saying thank you. And the more businesses that fold in, the better, right? Because it's just 100% network effects. We know that we can completely reshape through quadratic thinking the 4 marketplace pillars that we serve: volunteers, community, small business, and large corporates. We know that if you think quadratically in those 4, everything just comes into play, but there's nothing out there that does it. We're going to keep moving because I'm conscious of time, my friend. So we had rekindle relationships. We got lots of people that we need to have support our organisations and our entities, not just sponsors. It's volunteers, it's your members, it's all of those. Keep those relationships strong.
And just on that, and that's not a footnote that goes at the end of the page that you read later.
No.
That is a daily activity.
Yeah.
And the better we rekindle our relationship every day with volunteers, the better they feel appreciated, and the more that they will give the organisation because of that. The better
Yeah.
we rekindle our relationship with the souvlaki guy, talking about souvlakis, making them for dinner. You know what I mean? The more that we announce to the local business where we're from and who we're with,
Yeah.
gives you that presence of acknowledgement. So it's a thing that we do every day, rekindle the relationships we got. We do that at home. Everyone comes home from work or school or whatever, and we have that chat about how was your day and all that. That's rekindling that relationship. Let's make sure that we take that out into the community with us as well. And you'll see massive change if that becomes a daily activity. Anyway.
Can I make a suggestion? And the only suggestion I'm making is because of learning. I'm a perpetual learner. I love to shape shift to be better. The thing that I learnt this week in the business in which I run is that I asked our HR team to ask for one little snippet of information behind the curtain that we may not know about you as part of our team. It's been the best. It was the best delivery of our Lunch and Learn series. Why? Because I got to learn something about every single one of my team members that I didn't really know. And so it shows how shallow you can be, even though you think you're not. Sometimes you can be shallow. Don't be shallow. One line behind the curtain changes the dynamics of a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Resonate with stories. We're strong believers that you've got to get your messaging out there. If you're not telling the stories about who you are, what you do, your why, and you're not pushing that out into an audience that might resonate, then you're probably not doing the right job for the organisation in the long tail. A story, a good, decent single story, Daryl, we know can be repurposed into hundreds of stories if you play it right. So my only recommendation there would be when you build your story, build it long tail so that you can use it concurrently for a long time. I think there's power in that. Run virtual and physical events. We sort of touched on it a little bit, but I might get you to swing on that one. Run the virtual and physical events. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned briefly about little things that we have the technology to do. Online auctions, pre-bidding on auctions to cut some of the wear and tear down on the physical responsibility that you've got. So there is so many things that we can do now that actually create bonding and that environment that are in the virtual world, and that's thanks to the new technology. But and I'm old school, so I never say replace your physical events. But if you reach that back to number 12 on our list, which was reach out strategically, and if you've got a strategic plan, then by virtue of that, sorry for the pun, but you can see that we can achieve far more to the virtual side of that. That is far less arduous, and we all talk about volunteer burnout. How they're already giving what they can give. Physical events all take time, and I have to be there, and there's a presence I have to turn up. So when you think about that, have a look at them. And it doesn't take long for a Google search to go, what virtual events could I run, whether that's participation, whether that's sign-on, whether that's fundraising. There is so many of them there. And think about that strategically. Create those events. They become events, like the world's greatest shave Smithy started with an online event, right?
Yes.
There's no actual place to go to participate in the world's greatest shave.
Yeah, it was a video proof you did it.
So if you want to go, do a virtual event, which is run a kilometre for charity, and then upload the video of you running. It takes no burden from me, but I've got an activity that's happening, someone's interested in, and they're participating in, and the results become virtual. So yeah, it's a really big area, and because we're all time poor, it's a smart way to make sure that you've got all the touch points out there in your fund program, or your onboarding program, or whatever program you want to run. Think about
it gives you width. It gives you width, right? And it gives you more scope. So what's really funny is we're sitting here today and we're creating a long tail format piece, in truth, because there's technology out there, Daryl, that when we're finished and we talk about these 25 R's, which we need to keep moving on because clearly time is one of those constraints we're all beholden to. But the point to be made there is that will automatically rip out and strip out the short form content that we can put in reels or social stories or things like that within the Firefly brand. So here we are talking about exactly what the truth is. We're trying to prove that this is real, and we're doing it on the fly. And this is not complex. What is it? It's going to be 45 minutes of our time, 45 minutes to create this amazing reel of conversation.
Yeah, but there's a loop back to some of the technologies that we've shared in the 25 Rs, right? Because here's the thing. We don't have to do that. We've got some tech that will actually go, did this bloke say anything that was worth ripping out? And and it says, yeah, this
and it will rank it for content, and it will rank it for value, and it will strip it down into so it's literally put the whole format in, drop it into a tool, and it will spit out my 25 videos, of which 8 it might say are worth pushing out. The others are not, right? So I mean, it's there. It's just reach out. This is we are sharers. We are givers. Just reach out. So we'll keep moving. We've got rally support. We talked to that. I think some of these, there's clearly overlaps with some of these, right? Because it's intersections playing into intersections. So that concept of rallying support is about making sure you have a war cry. You know your why, and you're telling that story, and you're getting out there, and you're not only saying, hey, here I am, would you support me? You're trying to get people to say the same thing. We all know the power of compounding effect. I'm a golfer, you're a golfer, mate. You start on hole 1, you make a bet for $1. Yep. What people don't know, on a double or nothing bet, 18 holes later, do you know how much that dollar's worth?
Yeah, it's like 1 point something, isn't it? Mil?
It's over $1 million, mate. It's over $1 million. That is the power of compounding effect. So never, ever stop to think that if you can get someone behind you, next to you, with you on a journey, you just doubled it. If they go and do the same thing, you're now at 4, mate. So this is the power of rallying support, right?
Yeah, and don't, I just want to jump in there too. I mean, there was a lot of stuff.
I'll spark something.
No, there's a lot of stuff that started, and we have this old expression, which used to be a physical expression, which was to get on your soapbox, and that was people that were advocating for things. They'd take a soapbox down to the corner street where there was a crowd. They would stand
the town crier, right? The town crier,
They would advocate their story. So I'm encouraging all our volunteers to get on your soapbox. Like if you're passionate about what you do, then people will, look, and we're in this storytelling generation of marketing. The consumer wants to relate to your story, not to your fact, not to your product. We want to be involved and believe in. So get on your soapbox, tell your story. Do it with
create your vacuum, create your gravity. That's what it's all about. Come up with something that is your core mandate in your business. That is your gravity. That is your why. That is your statement that sets the tone for everyone that enters. Again, this is stuff that you can do in an organization, can go forever. Reach passive sponsorship. We did talk to that before, but the truth is, digital is the power there. And Firefly, with a plug directly to Firefly. I'm not about storytelling here or imparting information and growth. Firefly was built to provide a digital conduit for organisations to do a better job at managing their sponsors and working with their local community to engage. That's it, simple. So if you want to do passive sponsorship, Firefly is it. Firefly is the tool, and we built it for that reason, because no one's doing it in any market that I'm aware of, and we wanted to change that because we believe it's billions of dollars that is actively sitting there, benign, that can be tapped. Billions, right? So you open up the story to your little segue, you sign on a Bunnings, you sign on someone of significance, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars when the network's running at effect. Tens of thousands of dollars passively coming in as a reinforced sponsorship. Rebalance your workloads. Burnout is a killer. You've got to be really conscious of it. It doesn't matter whether it's at home. It doesn't matter whether it's in your work environment. It doesn't matter whether it's in your community environment. If you don't feel well, if you're not supporting the people around you to support you in your endeavors, then you are going to reach points where it feels like it's a labor. The moment it feels like it's a labor, you've lost your magic. You've
Yeah.
lost your magic. And we all started these things or got involved in these things because of the magic that we wanted to create. Yeah. So, Daryl, I know this is one of your big ones, my friend. Do you want to add to that?
Oh, look, it's one of the specific R's that relates to a number. Reskill for the future. If you can
Yeah.
identify the skill sets that are draining you that you don't have, which become laborious tasks, think about how you reskill for the future. And it's not just future from a legacy perspective; it's the future of what I got to do next week.
Yeah.
So we can do that. Reach out, as we said. Reach out strategically. Will help you rebalance your workload.
Yeah.
That relay and revamp, and the other one that we had there, which
Well, the next one,
was
I think the next one, reorganize for efficiency. Reorganize for efficiency removes workload balance. Like
correct.
that's literally what I'm trying to do in your game is how do I take the workload off one of our key contributors because I can see they're reaching burnout. I can see it. It's right in front of me. Two
Yeah,
things. If I lose them, our org drops by a 40% delivery to our audience. Yep.
yeah.
It's just a fact. The second is that if I don't create tools that can replicate or improve or simplify that task, then not only do I risk the redundancy of the loss of the role, the likelihood of a replacement of that role is so ridiculously hard. It's not funny. So I have to find a way to bridge the gap because at some point I know the wonderful Michelle, who we interviewed a few weeks ago, who's an incredible volunteer. I can't replace. I cannot. I know it's impossible, right? So you got
But
to
the other
fix it by
thing is,
designing the fix. Yeah.
when we talk about rebalance workloads as well, and just to give you a quick recant, when I was marketing manager of the Canberra Cannons, we had a major sponsor, the Canberra Times, so they had 40 game night tickets, box seats right behind the coach, like prime seats. What you don't think about is the work balance and the workload of that, because we'd get to game 4 or 5 and they would ring me every week and go, got anyone that wants to come to our box with us? Because
Mm.
our sponsorship had actually created a
Yeah.
burden of
Yeah.
obligation.
And you're 100% correct. Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have to think about how it's one thing for the sponsor to come to us and we have this great package and they're all excited, but they're not going to renew their sponsorship if you've created a burden for them to be able to fulfill on the opportunities you've given them. And it was a real shock to us because before you know it, you got like 8 different boxes that are all in the same boat. And you're going, well, yeah, sure, I can give them to Joe Punter, but is that what you want? Do you know what I mean? So,
You are so right. It's like the call to action button. Like it's all about what's in it for me.
yep,
Book a demo. I want to book a demo because it's for me. Like,
yeah,
no, it's not book a demo. Learn how to do something. Be better at this because
yep.
click here to learn more. It's a very, very subtly different positioning, but one is
Mm-hmm.
about inbound and the other is about making that person's life better for them. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. And then reinforce leadership. It's clearly the better you build your leadership team to think across, I think, these 25 and
Mm-hmm.
start to put programs in place slowly but surely, building the value that you create in your entity, the stronger the entity will be.
I want to
Revolutionize
jump in there.
meetings. I've got to jump because I'm conscious of time, my friend, and we're moving along and we want to hit as many as we can. But I'd love you to talk about revolutionized meetings. And you can
Yeah,
link
look,
in the leadership piece if you choose. But yeah,
no. There's a couple of things, and one of the ways that you can revolutionise your meetings is to reinforce leaders. One of the ways that you can reinforce leaders and start to think about your legacy position. If you've got a committee in your organisation or a board or whatever, and you think about that legacy piece, go down to your local school and ask to talk to the ducks of the school or their A student or their leading volunteer. Get some youth representation.
man,
Like,
sorry, I was going to cut you off, but I've changed my mind. Well done. Keep going.
because we advocate for these students to go and get mentors. But sometimes you actually got to sit back and go, we need them to mentor us. We need them with their fresh ideas. And when you reinforce the leadership of our youth, guess what they want to do? They want to move into roles that are going to actually challenge them and bring forth the rest of that. So one of the things
But they're
about
building a CV. They're building a history timeline that shows who they are and what they are. It's huge. It's mutually beneficial. This is not a one-way street. This is massively mutually beneficial.
And the way that we quickly revolutionised our meetings, and trust me, if you can do this and make it a mandate in your organisation, if a meeting doesn't come with an agenda, don't have it, because we get stuck into meetings for having meetings for meetings' sake to meetings.
Two. Two. If someone's sitting in a meeting that hasn't opened their mouth or spoken about something, ask a simple question. What are you here for? And there's only two reasons. Either you disagree, and that's why you haven't opened your mouth. And if you disagree, let me know, because I'd rather know what you don't agree with, because then we can improve it. Or you're not adding in value, so there's no point being in the meeting. There's 0 point being in the meeting. And the third piece to me, when you talk about just the basics of meeting management, is if you're not speaking about your customer at least once, your customer, your end user, at least once in a meeting, don't hold the meeting.
Yeah.
So agenda.
And if you really want to revolutionise your meetings, we've offered a number of times, as Courtney said, and he's an exponent of the new digital changes that we're coming through. Get yourself a tool that take away all the manual,
the mundanity, the admin bullshit,
and automate your meetings and give you a report and a response and a strategy, all in the matter of seconds. You know what I mean? Because we do.
So you can be present. That's the reason why I do it. I'm an avid note taker. Boom, 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 boom. But what happens when I'm note taking? My eyes, my concentration go to a different space. I'd like to pretend I'm the only male in the world that can multitask. It's not true. You can only do microtasking concurrently. That's the truth. There's no such thing as multitasking. And so these are tools that will revolutionise the way in which you communicate the outcomes of your meetings and set the actions for the coming meetings. Yeah. Revised policies. I'm moving on. I'm keeping this train going.
One more thing for you to say.
Train's at the station. It's leaving.
No. Think about the attendance at your meetings when the invitee knows that it's 35 minutes, not 2 hours. Because
that's spot on.
Streamline that process. I have guaranteed you'll get far more attendance when you get to a super productive meeting than you will knowing a 2-hour committee meeting tonight coming up. Anyway.
Virtual events links back to that as well. Don't just enforce for the sake of enforcement. It's great to have people in a room together, but if there's impediments to people getting in the room and they're great people doing the day-to-day tasks exceptionally, don't drag them out of their home in the bleak winter night in a Melbourne storm just because that's the way it's done. It's not a good way to think. So, huge takeaways here, mate. Meetings, they're the bane of every organisation, no matter whether it's a profit or not for profit. Revise your policies. Have a clear understanding of what it is you do, how you do it, and get your procedures and your policies and your standard operating procedures in place. Because if you do that, then when you lose people, you are able to more easily replace people in those roles. So it's a critical piece of the puzzle. And my opinion, there's things that sit out there as tools that can make that job that little bit easier than doing it in paper that we're all used to. Many people out there in this volunteering world would have heard of standards like ISO. ISO is about putting things in place that better deliver to the customer experience. Going back to everything we do, everything we should do for the people that are our customers. If we're a church, it's our congregation. If we're and potentially sponsors and or the wider community. If it's a club, it's clearly our members and families. Yep. Know who it is you're speaking to, and make sure you've got policies that meet to their needs. The things like you talked about before. It's don't think about what you want. Deliver what they want. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you go on the reboot technology because, I could talk about that for probably about 7 hours.
about for as long as we've been here, at least. Look, if you're still using an abacus to do your accounts, probably better to move on to Excel. If you're still using Excel, it's probably better that you move on to some other
Zero.
sophisticated technology like Xero. There is so much, and getting back to what I said earlier about our volunteering steering committee, there is so much available for our organisations to adopt and adapt. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting your head out of the what to actually see, is there a better way? That doesn't mean that, like, because our mantra is doing good is always good. It's never going to change how you do good by rebooting some of your technology that's just a bit burdensome. So, that was a real quick one. Just make sure you look at it. If you're using a technology platform, then think about, is there it goes back to your policy, Smithy. Like we review our budget every year, but do we review our policies every year? And our policies affect our budgets. So in that same thing, revise and reboot your technology. The price of it, which can scare some of the organisations because it's another budgetary thing.
It's all about how you look at it. It's all about how you look at outcome, right? What's return on investment? What's the value? If you've got someone doing 5 hours of work and you're squibbling on a $25 a month subscription, you're looking at it very much in the wrong way, because the 5 hours of work applied to going out and doing the things we've talked about, which is talking to your constituents, discussing it's kind of obvious, but it's not. It always is that burdensome thinking. I'm spending $1 here. What's it worth over here? It's hard to do sometimes to think in instances. The bit that I'm really crazy about is this refine of processes. I spend a lot of time researching and looking at ways to better our business. But one of the people, and love him or hate him, Elon Musk has a really, really interesting mantra about this. If you can't take out in a process at least 2 things to test whether that actually has an effect on breaking it first before you add things to it to improve, you're going about it the wrong way from a design thinking point of view. So when you're looking at your processes, look to squeeze out the things first. See where the breakpoints take place, and that's your feedback loop on what the process should probably be. So, processes are critical. Systems thinking is critical. Not everyone has the tools, wherewithal, and capability to do this, but you do, because you just got to reach out to Firefly and Cordo and Daryl and our friends, because we will happily engage with half an hour on the phone to chat about how we could improve or assist, or you could improve by just thinking slightly different.
Have it all there too, Smithy. We talked about rekindle relationships. Part of the refining process. We used to have our junior tennis event over summer at Christmas time in Shep. At the end of the event, the president would always say, how could we have done this better? And got everyone's feedback. And as a volunteer organisation, you've got a marketable survey database right in front of you at your fingertips. If you've rekindled the relationships with all of those, so they all feel appreciated and all feel that there is an opportunity to express, a lot of those processes will be redefined, and that'll help you refine them. Then you can say, can we use a technology to actually help simplify this? Is it a burden? And like you just said, it's drilled down to those areas of, again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But that doesn't mean, can we not do it better? So I simply look at
why is that the norm? The 5 whys. Why is that the norm? Why are we doing it like that? Why are you saying to me that's the only way it can be done? It's just take down a fishbone analysis or something like that, and just ask 5 whys every single time you've got a question. Ask the 5 whys. It's in front of you. You'll be surprised how quickly the reality comes out. And I think if you look at this and you think it through and you think through all of the variables, the closeout is that, for me, is that the passion, and this is the incredible paradigm that we play in, and it's the best part of what we do, is that passion towards a cause will deliver 5 times the exponential productivity in someone's mind of their desire to achieve something with you than paying them. If you can find their passion, their vigor, their care, their love, and you can ignite that alongside your passion, vigor, care, and love, the reinforcement of the value that creates in not only delivering to the storytelling, to the way in which you invigorate your community, but the rebuilding of culture comes from delivering that passion consistently and telling the passion story. We spoke today a little bit about my business because of your background, Daryl, and you mentioned something that instantly resonated with me, which was if somebody can't say that that product is the best product in market, then there's only two things that are reality. Why haven't we educated them to think it's the best product in market such that they believe in their day-to-day task? Because if you don't have belief, you don't act.
Yep.
And then the second one is if they're not on the page, then they could be negatively impacting your culture, your organization, your business. And that's probably got a worse effect than the build-up because it's a lot harder to unravel the poison or the negativity or the stuff that's not right than it is to add to what is right. So yeah, look, that's a bit of a, there's my sermon on the right. There's my soapbox. But man, oh man, it's critical, and culture of an org is going to be the difference between success and failure 9 times out of 10.
What? And I'm going to hold all those volunteers, whether they're Firefly members or whether they're not, that as a volunteer who has put their hand up and said, I am a good person that wants to do good. I am passionate about this particular environment by which I volunteer my time, and whether that's with the nurturing of our youth through sport, whether it's door knock appeal to raise funds for cancer research. We as a volunteer sector have a responsibility to rebuild community culture. No one else is going to do it. The people that are greedy or out for themselves, or shall we say doing bad, are not going to rebuild culture that will maintain humanity for the rest of its life. Do you know what I mean? So we have a burden. So whenever time you think about those, I could say something negative, I could say something positive. Trust in the fact that you're a good person because you're a volunteer, that doing good is always good. We have all these mantras, Smithy, as you know, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And how we have the ability by our nature of what we give to the community to show the community that we achieve so much more by doing good together than thinking about our own individual plight, mission, purpose, or agenda. So I'm going to encourage all our, and there's my soapbox, right? I'm going to encourage all.
Look, it's a beautiful segue and a close in that it's. I've got a good friend, Simon Waller, who's a keynote speaker, talks about the future of. He's about to do a podcast, a live podcast in a community centre around the future of community. So I'm going to head along to that. I'm very interested to see what that's going to unfold like. But what I will tell you is this simple fact, and this is a simple reality. My belief of future of community is that it will come back, because the more we digitize, the more we disconnect, the more we do things that aren't human, the more we need human. And communities where we all get to be humans every single day, all the time. And we don't have to live facades, and we don't have to do any of that. We can just enjoy each other's company, doing things that are good for each other. So I think that's an awesome segue to close out, mate. It's been a great year. We've achieved some great milestones together. I've appreciated every moment in the seat with you, mate. I will going forward. We just want to get reinvigoration out there around the community story. And we think that there are many great organisations doing things similar to Firefly. But I would love for the community to reach out and have a look at Firefly, because I think it's clear that we've designed something that's not about making money. It's not about that. It's about making a difference and making a change. It's free, mate. Let's be honest. We haven't come in with a commercial model. We don't charge our communities because it's nonsensical in the current environment and what they're trying to achieve. So I'm going to leave it on that. Mate. Let's.
Year, if every one of our volunteers just introduces Firefly to another volunteer,
to one other org, just one.
Then
we double overnight, mate. We double. It's as simple as that. We double overnight.
Yeah, and
It's as simple as that.
you talk about starts to
Yeah,
take over. So
yeah,
thanks for
yeah.
the journey for what are we in 25, 24, 25.
Yeah.
We've got some exciting stuff coming up. We're really honing in on our ECT and that passive fundraising that we talked about before. So watch the space. Enjoy this newsletter.
And we've agreed that in our marketplace we're going to go to our orgs first and build a massive organisation alignment, because if we get that bit right, I honestly believe the crowds will come. The crowds will come, and the crowds we're talking about are the ones with money that want to support organisations like yours. See you, mate.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Awesome, pal. We'll
Look
talk.
out for the next one.
Take
We'll
care,
see you in the
everyone.
next one next month, everyone. Au revoir.